Welcome back, folks, to the show. I'm Jack Stankey, joined by Sam Furmack, Henry Farber, and we have the absolute pleasure of being joined with basketball writer, basketball analyst, basketball guru, Jeff Goodman. Go follow him on Twitter at Goodman Hoops. Jeff, thanks so much for joining us today.
No, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it, and I hope all is well where you guys are.
Yeah, definitely all is well here, and I want to just take you back to March of 2020. The virus is just starting out, and you get the breaking news that, March Madness will be canceled. What were your original thoughts when you heard that news?
So it's funny. So that morning, I was supposed to fly to New York from Boston, where I live, to New York to cover the Big East tournament. And I could tell my wife really didn't want me to go. I was all gung-ho to go. I was like, you know what? It won't be that bad. I woke up that morning, and always try to follow your wife's advice. They know more than you do. So I did that. I didn't go to Madison Square Garden, and I'm watching, all the cancellations. And one of the big problems for college sports is there's no synergy. So I'm breaking, the MEAC cancels their tournament. The Southland cancels. I mean, there's just cancellations all over the place. The last one standing, if you remember, was the Big East. They played one half of basketball at Madison Square Garden. And I'm just sitting there as the game's starting, and I'm saying, man, I on one hand, I really wish I was there, because this is kind of an epic event that you're never going to forget. And you wish you, as a writer, as a broadcaster, you want to be at these types of events. But on the flip side, I'm saying, I don't want to be in New York at this time, because it's probably the worst place to be, as we saw when the pandemic kind of started. So it was chaos. It was chaos that morning, because I literally made a chart that day of every league that was still playing an NCAA a conference tournament, and was kind of checking them off as they canceled, and texting and calling commissioners and coaches and PR people, a little bit of everything. So it was crazy.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, with the cancellation of March Madness, a lot of players' draft stock could have gone here or there. How do you think that affected different players' draft stocks?
Yeah, it totally did. I mean, like a kid like Ayo DeSumo, okay, he's a good example, went to Illinois and had such a strong second half of the year. And if Illinois plays in the NCAA tournament, all it's going to take is a couple big games for him to make shots. His big weakness is shooting the ball from the perimeter. But if he has a couple games where he makes some threes with the world watching, he goes from a mid-second rounder to a late first rounder. So a lot of guys didn't have that opportunity. You always get some guys that kind of come out of nowhere too, right? Some of the mid-major guys, the upsets, everything like that. But yeah, I think it was hard for a lot of these kids that, again, didn't have a chance. I think of a Lamar Stevens at Penn State. He waits for 3 years at Penn State to get to the NCAA tournament. They get there, they're locked in, and he never has a chance to play in the NCAA tournament. That sucks.
Yeah, it's crushing.
Going back to the March Madness, we saw players last year like John Morant. He went second overall, probably in a large part due to the March Madness tournament. How does that affect players who really want to raise their draft stock and now don't have that option?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I think it's one of those things where so many players use that as kind of to catapult themselves and help themselves, because, listen, we all overreact to certain things, and especially big games. NBA GMs are watching then, when they may not be watching all year long quite as much, because they're worried about their own team. When March Madness hits, they're all sitting home like we are. Well, I'm on the road covering games in person, but like so many of the GMs are sitting in front of their TVs watching games all day long, and they're watching guys they might not have watched quite as much. And there's also more pressure then. So they're going to use that and utilize that a little bit more than they would a regular season game.
If you're just joining us, folks, we still have the pleasure of talking to basketball analyst Jeff Goodman. Again, go give him a follow on Twitter at Goodman Hoops. And Jeff, I want to ask you about the giant international presence this year going into the 2020 NBA draft. We have international players such as Giannis Antetokounmpo, who comes from nothing, being drafted out of Greece, and all of a sudden he's the 2019 NBA MVP. How do you see this such deep international draft going for these overseas players?
Yeah, listen, there's some guys that are going to go. I think you're going to have, two or three guys go in the lottery potentially, a couple point guards. Certainly, Denny is the big name from Israel. He's been terrific this year, played a high level. He's a guy that's versatile forward, does everything well, better athlete than people kind of give him credit for. So I think, again, you're right. I mean, the more of these international guys that do well, the Luka Doncic's, the Porzingis, obviously both of them on the Mavericks right now, Giannis, it's exploded, and it's not slowing down anytime soon.
Obviously, there's a lot of good players going to the draft, whether they played here or international, but who has been your absolute favorite player to watch, especially going into this year's draft?
Oh, boy. I don't think this draft is strong. I really don't. And most NBA GMs would agree with me. They don't want the number one pick. This is kind of similar to a draft a few years ago when Chris Grant, the then GM of the Cleveland Cavaliers, took Anthony Bennett, and he got fired for it. He ultimately got fired because of it. So I think a lot of GMs are scared. Now, a guy like Bob Myers, who's at Golden State, big deal. If he misses on it, not the end of the world. But I think you got three guys that are all kind of fighting for the number one spot. And I don't think any one of those three are going to be the best player to come out of this draft. One name that I would really keep an eye on. You know, listen, in the NBA right now, what's the most important thing? It's a versatile forward. Those are the guys right now, a multi-dimensional forward. That's what everybody wants in the league right now. And there's a guy named Patrick Williams, coming out of Florida State, a freshman, kind of came off the bench, big, strong, athletic, versatile, can defend multiple positions. And I think he's a guy to watch. But if I'm a betting man, I'm saying somebody that is not drafted in the top three is going to have the best career coming out of this year's draft class.
Transitioning over to the NBA, I think it's a pretty straightforward question, but has Damian Lillard proved himself as the bubble MVP?
Yeah, it's so funny. So back years ago when Damian Lillard was coming out of Weber State, they only allowed one media person then to go to the NBA Combine and watch. It wasn't open to all the media. For some reason, they picked me that year. I forget if I was with Fox or CBS or who I was with. I've been at a few different places. But I remember going in there, and I'd never seen Damian Lillard in person. And he put on the most ridiculous display of shooting I have ever seen. And I'm like, oh, my God, this dude is insane. And so none of this surprises me, I guess. But certainly the 61 with everything. I think what was most impressive to me was CJ McCollum is not himself right now. He's clearly hurt right now. And Lillard has to carry them. So I think Lillard is probably the MVP. And the biggest surprise, I give it to two guys. I give it to TJ Warren, certainly of the Pacers, and I'm going to give it to Michael Porter Jr., who, oh, by the way, before his injuries, I think he would have been the number one overall pick. He was that good. He was the closest thing to Kevin Durant that I had ever seen at the same stage in AAU ball.
And keeping it bubble related, we've seen how well, the Walt Disney World bubble has worked out for the NBA. 0 positive tests for a very long time. Do you see the NCAA making the same decision for the 2021 March Madness tournament?
I hope so. I hope we get to the tournament. That's the biggest thing. Okay, so we got to get there. And in order to get there, that means all these conference commissioners and school presidents have to sign off on it. So we can say whatever we want, bubble up the NCAA tournament. I think that's the easy part. The hard part is playing regular season games because of the liability question. It's, you've got different leagues. Like, you can bubble every league, but some leagues obviously have more resources than others. The Power 5 schools, even the Big East, have a lot more resources to be able to bubble up and do it right. So I just hope we get to an NCAA tournament. And right now, I'm not overly optimistic, to be honest.
So going back to the NBA bubble, so there's obviously been widely known that the 8th seed has just been the hot topic this season. Which team do you think is going to get the 8th seed as we boil down to the last few games?
So, again, I thought it was going to be Portland easy. If CJ McCollum's healthy, I would say it's a layup or a long three-pointer, as in the case of Damian Lillard for Portland. But now I'm kind of leaning towards Phoenix. I really am. I mean, listen, Devin Booker, he's a star. I mean, he's an absolute star, just a scorer who can do it in every which way. DeAndre Ayton, yeah, he might not have shouldn't have been the number one pick maybe in the draft when he was taken, but again, there aren't many big men that can do the things that he can do. And the most underrated guy is Ricky Rubio. He's been the MVP for me, because not only does he just make people better and run the offense, but he's such a good defender, and he does it deceptively. He's not a great athlete, we know that, but just knows how to play positional defense. So I think I'm leaning towards Phoenix because of CJ McCollum's injury.
Is this Phoenix team, we see them go 7-0. Is this a glimpse into the future of Phoenix? Are they going to start being a team that can have these runs, or is this just luck because of the bubble and the situation they're in?
So here's what I worry about for Phoenix. You remember a few years ago when New Orleans won a first-round series and everybody got on the New Orleans bandwagon and they were like, oh, all right, next year, Anthony Davis in New Orleans, they're going to go further. They're going to have a chance. And they didn't. They didn't even go to the playoffs. And then what happened? Anthony Davis requested a trade and was out. I hope this isn't the case with Phoenix, but we even saw it with Draymond Green the other day on air when he basically called out and said, Devin Booker needs to get out of Phoenix. Then Draymond was fined $50,000 or $25,000, whatever it was. I just worry that they raise their expectations here in a short period of time. And next year, if they take a step back, does then Devin Booker's agent say, you know what, he wants out?
Jeff, who do you see winning the NBA championship?
I guess I'll go LeBron. I mean, it's hard not to, right? LeBron and AD, as long as they stay healthy. I mean, I know, listen, nobody has more respect than Kawhi Leonard than I do. But when you got LeBron and AD, I think it's going to be just a case of like who's left standing at the end and who's the healthiest at the end. And that's who wins the NBA title. Those are the two that I think are the clear favorites. I don't think Milwaukee can win it all.
We definitely see a lot of upcoming excitement for college and NBA basketball. Again, thank you, Jeff Goodman, basketball writer, basketball guru, at Goodman Hoops on Twitter. Thanks again for your time.
Thanks,
and
guys.
when we come back, we're going to debate, the NFL tight end position and how deep it has gotten